Toyota never set out to create a legend when it built the Supra. In fact, if you go back to the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Supra was never intended to be a halo car, a cultural icon, or the backbone of global tuning culture. It was simply meant to be a comfortable, reliable, slightly sporty grand touring coupe, built for mature buyers who wanted smooth power and everyday usability rather than raw performance. The Supra began its life as a longer, more refined version of the Toyota Celica, designed to appeal to drivers who wanted refinement first and speed second. Even in its early generations, the Supra was positioned as a well-balanced car, not a rebellious one. Toyota's philosophy at the time was clear: durability, predictability, and engineering discipline mattered more than emotional design or motorsport bravado. This mindset followed the Supra through multiple generations, all the way to the iconic MK4, while enthusiasts today view the MK4 Supra as one of the greatest performance cars ever built. Toyota internally treated it as just another product in a very conservative lineup. The goal was not domination, it was balance. The engineers focused on creating a smooth inline-six engine, a chassis that could handle long-distance driving, and reliability standards that bordered on obsessive. Toyota was not chasing Nürburgring lap times or drag strip records. They were chasing something far more boring, yet far more dangerous in hindsight: over-engineering. At the time, Japanese manufacturers were competing fiercely with European brands by offering similar performance, but with unmatched reliability. Toyota wanted the Supra to feel refined, solid, and almost indestructible. Every component was built with safety margins that far exceeded what was necessary for factory power levels. The engineers were not thinking about turbo swaps, boost controllers, or street racing. They were thinking about warranties, customer satisfaction, and long-term ownership. Ironically, this conservative mindset planted the seeds for something Toyota never intended. By the early 1990s, the automotive world was changing rapidly. Performance cars were becoming lighter, sharper, and more aggressive. Mazda had the RX-7, Nissan had the Skyline GTR, and Honda was redefining high-revving, naturally aspirated performance. Toyota, however, stayed true to its philosophy. When the MK4 Supra launched in 1993, it arrived heavier than some rivals, more expensive than expected, and visually more subdued. On paper, it did not scream revolution. But under the hood, Toyota had quietly created a mechanical masterpiece that would eventually escape its original purpose and rewrite its own destiny. What Toyota didn't realize at the time was that by building a car that refused to break, they had created the perfect platform for something far more chaotic. The Supra was about to leave the controlled world of corporate engineering and enter the wild, unpredictable ecosystem of global car culture, where legends are not planned, they are discovered. At the heart of the Toyota Supra MK4 lies an engine that would become more famous than the car itself: the 2JZ GTE. Even today, decades after its debut, the 2JZ is spoken about with a level of respect usually reserved for race engines and aerospace machinery. What made the 2G special was not just its power, but its refusal to fail. Built with a cast iron block, forged internals, and an incredibly strong bottom end, the 2JZ was engineered to handle stress far beyond its factory output. From Toyota's perspective, this was simply responsible design. From the tuner world's perspective, it was an open invitation to push boundaries. The factory twin-turbo setup delivered a conservative 276 horsepower, a number influenced by Japan's gentleman's agreement rather than technical limitations. In reality, the engine was capable of far more. Enthusiasts quickly discovered that with basic modifications, the 2G could produce 500 horsepower reliably, then 700, then 1,000, all without opening the engine. Stories began circulating of Supras running absurd boost levels on stock internals, surviving punishment that would destroy lesser engines. This was not luck. This was the result of Toyota engineers building an engine with tolerances and strength margins that bordered on excessive. What truly set the 2G apart was its versatility. It could be a smooth daily driver or a brutal drag monster. It responded equally well to single-turbo conversions, upgraded fuel systems, and aggressive tuning. Unlike many performance engines of the era, the 2G did not demand constant maintenance or fragile handling. It welcomed abuse. This characteristic transformed the Supra into a blank canvas for tuners around the world. In Japan, the Supra became a staple of street racing culture. In the United States, it became a drag strip legend. In Europe, it gained a cult following among performance purists. As the years passed, the reputation of the 2JZ grew larger than Toyota itself. The engine became a symbol of mechanical honesty, a reminder of an era when manufacturers overbuilt rather than optimized for cost. Ironically, this reputation also sealed the Supra's fate. Sales were declining, emissions regulations were tightening, and buyers were shifting toward SUVs and economy cars. The Supra was expensive to build and increasingly difficult to justify in Toyota's lineup. By 2002, the MK4 Supra was discontinued, not with a bang, but with quiet resignation. Toyota walked away, believing the Supra had simply run its course. But legends do not disappear just because production stops. In fact, the Supra was only beginning its second life. Without Toyota's oversight, the Supra became something far more powerful than a factory product. It became an idea, a benchmark, and eventually, a myth. If the 2G gave the Supra its mechanical soul, Fast and Furious gave it immortality. When the first Fast and Furious film was released in 2001, few could have predicted its cultural impact. At the time, the movie was not a polished blockbuster. It was a gritty, street-level film about underground racing culture. But one car stood out above all others: the bright orange Toyota Supra driven by Brian O'Connor. That single cinematic moment transformed the Supra from a respected enthusiast car into a global icon overnight. Before the movie, the Supra was known mainly within hardcore automotive circles. After the movie, it became a symbol of rebellion, speed, and transformation. The Supra represented the idea that an ordinary-looking car could become extraordinary through knowledge, skill, and passion. It was not about wealth or exclusivity. It was about building something better than what the factory delivered. This narrative resonated deeply with a generation raised on car culture, video games, and DIY tuning. The Fast and Furious franchise didn't just showcase the Supra. It rewrote its identity. Suddenly, the Supra was no longer a grand tourer designed by conservative engineers. It was a street legend capable of humiliating supercars and outrunning authority. Demand for Supras skyrocketed. Prices began climbing. Cars that once sat unsold became collector's items. Toyota, ironically, had no control over this transformation. The Supra's legacy was no longer in corporate hands. It belonged to the people. As years passed, the Supra became increasingly rare, yet increasingly influential. Modern performance cars began chasing numbers the Supra had achieved decades earlier. Tuners continued pushing the 2G into 4-digit horsepower territory. The Supra became a benchmark against which all other tuner cars were measured. Even when Toyota finally reintroduced the Supra name with the '90 generation, the shadow of the MK4 loomed large. The comparison was inevitable and in many ways unfair. The MK4 Supra was never supposed to be perfect, yet it became untouchable. The Toyota Supra outlived its era because it was built without ego and immortalized by culture. It was not born a legend. It earned that status through time, community, and mechanical integrity. Toyota may never have intended to create a car that would define generations, but sometimes the greatest legends are the ones that escape their creators.